Welcome to a slightly different episode of GBGuns. That panoramic intro was in Oregon. I'm in Colorado. Doing a pretty cool shooting event. I'll tell you what I brought and what I expect, and sort of bringing you along as much as I can. Coming up next on GBGuns. So I was fortunate enough to be invited to a private event, if you will. It is a class of sorts. I can't name who's teaching, who all's here, what companies are involved. But it's a private event, a group of friends mostly. And we're out at a remote location in hour from anywhere, plus, let's make that more like 3 hours from anywhere, Colorado, to do an SR-25 AR-10 event. I was told 308, gas gun only, close quarters to maximum capability of the platform and shooter. That left me wondering quite a few things. I was given a light gear list of what all to bring, and a rough round count of 500 rounds of ball, 200 to 300 rounds of match ammo. This being 2021, as you can imagine, that's not easy to find. So I'll tell you what I brought and what I'm expecting, and then film some updates throughout the course and let you know what I've learned and how what I brought worked out. Today is the first day of it, and I've been told this is the precision and long range section of it. So for a 10, I brought my DoubleStar 10B. This guy has been with the channel a long time. We have full reviews on it. It's the Batman rifle, if you will. Very stylish piece, very heavy piece, but also very accurate piece. When it comes to that match ammo, because it's 2021, kind of hard to get a hold of. For my ball for the close in, I'm gonna be running Wolf steel case. Different gun than this. I brought multiple guns. And for the match, the best I've got is some 150 grain Fiocchi and PMC, which is meant to be standard close in stuff. So I just brought more of it. I figure if it takes me 4 shots to land the one that others are going to have with match ammo, then at least bring 5 rounds of ammo for every one that they're asking for. So not looking forward to that. That's going to be a challenge. Another interesting challenge to this is we were instructed low power variable optics only. It's like, but you also talked about targets at 1,000. So we'll see how that works out. Now I brought 3 different rifles, each because they have sort of a specialty. The DoubleStar, very accurate. In fact, it shot about 1.4 inches with that Wolf steel case as a verified 0 before heading out. Bringing all this ammo and guns meant that flying or shipping would either be expensive or very complicated to do. So I drove a 23-hour drive from my spot in Oregon to this spot in Colorado. But for today's section, the DoubleStar 10B, I'm going to be running the Lucid optics 1:6. This is, I believe, the L7 is the name of the optic. And if you've watched our optics videos, you know that this reticle is incredibly thin. It is a teeny tiny reticle, sometimes difficult to identify on target. However, that also means it stays out of the way. So I'm hoping to make up for lack of magnification by having the reticle not be in my face. Also running a worn bipod, and I have a rear bag, but this is a large heavy gun that tends to be stupidly accurate. So those are my hopes. I've shot out to a mile before at media events, but that's with, for example, that mile shot was a Barrett MRAD in 300 PRC with a Barrett spotter there, their choice ammo, and of course the optic being super high power and everything basically dialed in. I just had to be good on the trigger. So while I have shot longer range shots, I've not done it the smart way of actually knowing what your dope is with the drop and how the bullet's going to fly, adjusting the scope, nor have I ever done it with such a low-powered optic. It's kind of cool if you think about it, because this is a more tactical application, if you will, of the platform to have a low-powered variable optic and have it be sort of a more of a patrol rifle type scenario than a designated marksman type thing. So I'm looking forward to it. And the DoubleStar has served me well for years. I'm hoping to continue well with that. Let me show you what the other guns are. For the close-in stuff, you want things to be light, quick handling, low recoil, but most importantly, easy to shoulder. If you've seen our Ready Up video, then you know what I'm talking about, is popping guns up over and over again. Can get exhausting, especially if you're someone like myself and you're used to living at 300-foot elevation. You find yourself suddenly at over 8,000 feet elevation. The air's a little thinner here. I'm not in fighting shape anymore. This is going to be a challenge. So for that, I brought the POF Revolution. Got videos on this if you've not seen the Revolution or aren't familiar with it. It's not really an SR-25 or AR-10. It's unique in a lot of ways. Watch those videos to learn what makes it so different. But the reason why I chose it is because to me it handles more like an AR-15 than anything else. Also, it's got full ambidextrous controls, and what I've learned from running courses like this, especially in dry deserts, when you're someone like myself coming from a more comfortable climate, your hands get dry, start to crack, start to get tired, and sometimes it's nice to be able to swap and use different controls so you're wearing out different fingers. Now this thing shoots like a dream. It is a very, very comfortable rifle to spend a lot of time with. I just haven't had the accuracy that you may have seen others report with theirs. I even sent it back to POF because, well, this was a purchased gun. They aren't cheap. And when I wasn't getting the accuracy that you hear bragged about all the time, even trying several loads, I've got videos on that, I was kind of crushed, especially considering Frank DeSoma, the mastermind and force behind this gun ever existing, had just recently passed away, and this gun was meant to be in memoriam for him and all he's done for the firearms industry. So they sent it back, said it was accurate, showed me a really nice group, didn't tell me what the ammo was despite me asking. I've since tried again with 5 different loads, our what's for dinner test, and still can't match that accuracy. I'm no sniper, I'm no precision shooter, but I'm usually pretty good with rifles and have shot sub-MOA groups before on much simpler systems. So I've kind of resigned to understand that this is a fighting gun. I mean, hell, it's got a fighting length barrel. It's only a 16-inch. So that's what the POF Revolution is going to be serving as here, is my quick-to-shoulder on-spot close-in rifle. For the optic, riding on top is the Riton X7 Tactix, I believe it is. It is a 1:6. I chose it for the close-in stuff because the reticle is rather thick. That makes it quick to identify and easy to use so long as your target isn't tiny, which in this case would mean far away. So as a true 1:6, probably designed for what most 1:6s are used for. It's got a thicker reticle, it's quicker to pick up, easier to use. That with a quick and light handling rifle should make for my good close-in stuff. All right, so day 1 is over. This is now early morning of day 2, and I want to give you an update on how things ran for me. So for the first day, I ran that DoubleStar 10B with the Lucid optics. L7, I believe, is the name of the scope. It's a 1:6 as required for this course. And well, the DoubleStar I've been running 5 years now or so. And as you know, AR-10s can be finicky, and a lot of people think there's kind of some black magic that goes into making an AR-10 run at all. So after all these years, and of course I only clean guns when I stop working, what happens to me day 1 out here? Nothing. DoubleStar ran great. The ammo choice that I have for this whole trip is nothing spectacular, and so shooting at distance was a little worrisome. Using PMC bronze, 147 grain, and with that 1:6 and that ammo, when we confirmed zeros and did some
drills and tests at 100 yards. I'd love to tell you what, but I don't give away what other people teach. That doesn't help keep the perfection going. About 2 to 3 MOA is how it was shooting. So then I've got that in my head, knowing that if I'm spot on and everything's perfect, 2 to 3 MOA is the best I can hope for. We reached out to 535 on a reduced size torso, and believe it or not, that 147 grain can do it. It took me 2 or 3 shots to land out there, but I was impressed. Then we had one at about 650. That apparently is outside what the 147 grain plus 2 to 3 MOA is going to be able to effectively do for me. So that combo for me is worth about 500 yards is how I'm taking it. The optic in that Lucid, I think it's pretty good for close in. I was surprised how well it worked for reaching out further, because there's not much to it. As you guys have seen in our video on it, it's a very clean picture, very fine reticle, lots of open space, which makes it easy to see things. However, when it comes down to aiming at a BC zone piece of steel at 600 yards, you're left kind of floating, but the instructor, very talented, very skilled, very experienced, was able to help me kind of walk it in there. So that worked pretty well. Now today, day 2, after we're all sunburnt and tired, especially folks like me coming out of Oregon where we're not used to this much daylight, we're going to do some using natural positions and shooting from rocks and trees and things like that. A little more stable, field worthy, if you will. So I think today I'm going to swap over to the POF Revolution, just because that DoubleStar is a beast. I mean, it's a big old heavy gun. They're more suited for bench shooting or prone shooting, that kind of thing. I mean, as someone who doesn't shoot past 100 yards very often, simply because rifles are reviewed at 100, and 100 is all the range space we have anywhere near us. It was pretty cool to reach out and like second or third hit or shot hit on 535, especially with affordable ball ammunition. So I think that speaks highly of the rifle and the instruction that we've got here. Really interesting for me running that Lucid optic yesterday. Had you asked me previously if a 1-to-6 power was good for landing reduced size targets at 500 yards, I'd have said, like, are you even going to see it? Now, one difference I will say between shooting steel versus a living target at that distance is the steel was painted and put in locations so that we could find it and see it. Another target might not be. So that was kind of a handicap that helped with shooting with these low powers, but it was pretty neat to learn effective BDC and make spots up, jotted them all down, of course, in the reticle that make it practical for shooting these distances with low powered scope and with reticles that aren't necessarily ideal for that. Most of the guys here are running $3,000 optics with super fancy reticles, and they're used to shooting these distances with this power of magnification. So I'm definitely the new kid here, but learning a lot. So far, no gear failures other than the lab radar. Once again, that was a total waste of $500. Bought that thing looking to do some better science for you guys with it and science for our articles, and have yet to have it really function reliably. Complete waste of money. I'm quite pissy with it, and the more professional shooters that are here said they've had similar experiences with lab radar, so that's going to be a big old fat not recommended. I think I'm going to get some coffee and get the Revolution ready, and we'll see you after that.
All right, so day 2 is over. About to start day 3, the last day of it. And once again, I'm sorry guys that I can't show you much in the way of photos or footage from the training itself. Not only is this a private event, but I'm shooting. It's kind of hard to film when you're shooting. So, really starting to learn quite a bit. I ran yesterday with the POF Revolution, only a 16-inch barrel, and running the Riton 1-6. And because of the ammo crisis and everything, I'm running Wolf 150 grain. Not exactly your ideal load. Notice with both the Revolution and the DoubleStar 10B that I ran on day 1, where we did more prone work, 3 MOA was about the best I could do. Interestingly enough, that I could do that with the 16-inch just as well as I did with the longer DoubleStar. But I've been able to maintain 3 MOA outside of prone. We did a lot of different improvised shooting positions off of a ladder, off of a ramp, off of a chair, things like that. Kind of competition oriented, but also good training for, you know, in the field type shooting without a.
And as you saw, I lost audio. So unfortunately, got to do all this after the fact, after getting home, but I was rambling too much anyways, right? So what did I learn running the DoubleStar 10B with a 1-6 Lucid optics on it, and the POF Revolution with a Riton 1-6 on it? As I said, I was using Wolf 150 grain steel cased ammo, dirt cheap ammo. 0 malfunctions with the DoubleStar on day 1 for all the long range prone stuff. I use this thing because, well, it is beastly heavy, but it's got a heavier profile to it, a longer barrel, and so I thought it would be better for the long range. No malfunctions issues with it. Sorry, neighbors are popping out. Scope was good, has a very fine reticle as we've shown you in our scope review of it. That was awesome for making a tiny aiming point on a reduced size torso at 500 yards. Even at 650, it was great for being able to find. What I didn't like with this reticle was there was so much open space between the subtensions there that once wind and hold came into play, I was kind of just floating my target out there. Now it was plenty clear to do that. I had great visibility, but it made it a little more difficult to aim. Rifle did great. The spotter said it was so tough watching me shoot at 650 because he could see the trace, see that round was heading right where it's supposed to, and then around the 500 yardish mark, it just said nah and headed off into some type of random direction. So I scared the 650 target quite a bit. Considered 500 to be about my practical limit with this rifle scope ammo combo. That was long range stuff doing prone position. What about other positions? That's where the Revolution came in. So the end of the second day and into the third day, we did quicker moving stuff. We did upright stuff, shot from various positions, using different steps off of a ladder, using a ramp, using a chair, your PRS, NRL type stuff that you see in those matches. And for that, I wanted something a little lighter and quicker handling. That's where the Revolution came in. Those of you unfamiliar with the Revolution, you should see our videos on it. This thing is an amazing piece that really is almost not an AR. It's certainly not an AR-10 and certainly not an AR-15 in that the receivers are smaller, but then it's also a piston system. So it's a completely unique gun. The issues I've had with it in the past were that it wasn't super accurate. So using Wolf steel case and long range, sure, Graham, that sounds like a great idea. But it's what I had to run. I also hit about 3 MOA with it, just like I did with the DoubleStar, so it held its own there. And I was able to hold 3 MOA in various shooting positions, all those different spots. So I was doing well, the rifle was doing well, it's just the ammo. The later shooting, using the Riton, I came to really appreciate the scope. It changed my opinion of it. When we've used it just as a low-powered for, you know, what most people use a low powered variable optic for on an AR-15 or a PCC or something like that. I thought the reticle was a bit thick, a little bit too much. However, this setup right here with Wolf 150 grain, the subtensions on that reticle, which you've seen in our video on the scope, ended up being just about perfect. It was practically a BDC for how that ammunition was performing out of this barrel. So my holds were very predictable, very easy. 350, 400 yards was about the limit of what I consider myself to be reliable at on a reduced size torso. Yes, I hit the 5 with this. Yes, I even hit the 650 with this, just like with the DoubleStar, but not with the same predictable reliability. The longer barrel, heavier profile setup on the DoubleStar meant 500 was not a question. On this more fighting gun, 350 was where I'd consider my personal limit with that ammo setup. But it really changed the way that I look at optics. And reticles, especially low-powered variable optics, it is totally possible to use them at 5, 6, 650, even beyond. Some of the more skilled shooters with fancier setups were running all the way out to 1,000, but their shots at 1,000 were kind of like my shots at 650, in that you scare the heck out of the target for quite some time and pepper the ground all around it before the wind ends up being just right. One malfunction with this thing, it was a weird failure to eject of sorts. Casing ended up kind of stovepiped. Not sure how it happened, but considering I was using low-grade ammo, that could have been around that didn't have proper powder charge or something like that. Not blaming the gun, not blaming the magazines. It only happened once and I couldn't make it happen again. When it came time to shoot quick from the shoulder, we did some cool drills, including one, I think it was called 50-50, 20 yard, 10 yard, 5 yard. You got to do 10 shots at each spot. At the 20 yard, you have 10 seconds. At the 10 yard, you have 5 seconds. At the 5 yard, you have 2.5 seconds to burp off 10 shots and hit them all within a 8x5 sheet of paper. Rather challenging. The Revolution made it feasible for me. So it was great there. My only loss in time was just my own lack of proficiency at doing a ready up and hammer away 10 shots type drill. You guys have seen me run triggers fast before. I was successful on that part of it, but I just hadn't snapped this thing up into my shoulder enough times previously to be really quick at that. To learn more about that kind of thing, check our recently published video called Ready Up Drills. You'll see the general concept there. Think about doing that and then dumping 10 rounds into an 8x5 card while managing 308 recoil. What's the point of that, you might ask? Well, it's obviously not that any target needs 10 rounds of 308 dumped in it quickly. It's more forcing yourself, stressing yourself to be quick on the gun and quick with the trigger and handle the recoil and weight of a big gun. So each gun has its own signature as to which way it wants to pull or push or rise, and that all depends on how you are holding the rifle. I won't get into details on that too much now because I don't want to be running away from a course that was offered to me and spilling all of their methodologies and things like that. But it was an awesome opportunity. The equipment did well. I think if I do it again, I probably, one, bring better ammo for sure, and two, most likely bring that new Brownell's MPO scope that we have a video on as well. That reticle I think would have been better for this mission. But it was kind of cool to run gear somewhat outside of its norm and get off the boring flat range and get some training by some excellent shooters. Hope some of my lessons learned were of interest to you. I appreciate you guys watching this long into it. Wasn't sure what all I'd be able to say or show. Turns out I couldn't really show you anything, but what all I'd be able to say about the event. But it was definitely an interesting thing to try something I don't normally do with equipment that I may not have normally grabbed, but these were the parameters of the course. Thanks for watching.